Unplugged. I'm so excited. We've got a full house again. We've got Emily EK Murdoch, Kate Archer, Shana Galen, and E.L. Johnson with us this week. Ladies, thanks so much for taking the time to talk to us.
Hi there.
Hi.
So we're gonna go in order of release because we have a jam-packed week this week. So we're gonna start with Kate Archer's book, which is Convince Me, Viscount, and it's book 6 in the Very Fine Metal series. Kate, can you tell us about your book?
Yeah, so this is the wrap up to the series. And the last book of a series is always one of my favorite things to write because there's so much to wrap up. So this is the elder brother's story. And he's been sort of skipping along very happily in the background while his sisters go through their seasons. And he's been very good natured about everything they've put him through. And he thinks he's in the clear now. Nobody is coming to town. He's got the house back and he can go back to just, running his club. Unfortunately, somebody is looking for Miss Mayton and she does not want to be found. So she convinces the Earl to come back to town, gets all the sisters together under the guise of, we need to help Lord Darden get married. Otherwise, he's going to be a confirmed bachelor and will never get married. And then the love interest is not at all excited about coming to town. She is the daughter of a duke who has been talking to her entire life about not losing her status. So therefore, her choices are two people who will eventually become dukes. And she's sort of resigned to this and trying to make the best of it and like them. And so then it just sort of goes from there. But one of my favorite things is Miss Mayton has two very big secrets that she's been carrying through the 6 books, and they all come out in the end.
Oh,
and
great.
She may feel that Beau Brummel is in love with her.
Well, I love that. I love that we're finally going to get resolution about the things that have been coming out. And I think you said that there was a novella that was her story, or am I wrong about that?
No, Mariana.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And it was something, but I didn't quite have it. Well, that's lovely, and it's such a nice long series with the family that we can fall in love with the whole entire way. So that's so much fun. What's coming up next for you, Kate?
I am writing a series that is temporarily called The Duke and His Daughters, and it is a duke. The Duchess died. He's been raising his 7 daughters in the wilderness of the Yorkshire Dales. He is completely eccentric. Nobody ever crosses him. He's an inveterate liar. He thinks like rules and manners are other people's problems. And, he's just looking to unload his daughters. And so he's packing them up and coming to town. And then there is a very proper aunt who is trying to get, some structure into the whole thing, not very successfully. And I think it's going to be fun. This last series was the first series I wrote as a family, and I really liked that. I really liked it a lot. So going to be doing the family thing again.
Yeah, it's lovely when you have that history, when the characters have that history already built in that you can draw on for the story. That's very, very, very cool. Awesome. Well, there's something to look forward to then too. So the next book that comes out this week is Erin's book, and it's A Lion to Die For. So that's one of the Lion's Den books. Can you tell us about that one?
Sure. Let's see. It's about a female, 2 kind of sister and sister-in-law hat makers or milliners in London off of like a side street off of New Bond Street. And it's kind of like a novel or novella about grief. So the main character, Emmeline, she's kind of fallen for the wrong guy. Her family has sent her off in disgrace from Bedfordshire to live with her brother and his sister-in-law, his wife, in London. And the brother dies. And so now it's her living with her sister-in-law, and her sister-in-law is not okay. Like, she's been grieving for a while now. And so, but the last thing they found in his will was that he had just purchased this shop and he wanted to sell hats and, like cravats and things. And so they're going to run it. But, it's a street full of male shop owners and they're not that welcoming, particularly like the owner who runs all the shops. and there's a hero, and yes, it's full of like polite misunderstandings and just a little bit of like witty banter, and I quite like it. But I didn't realize just how much grief plays into this one supporting character, Charlotte, and how like grief can make people act irrationally. It can change their behavior so easily at the drop of a hat. And so that really comes into this novella quite a lot. So yeah, so there's that. There's the romance, there's grief, and then because I'm a mystery writer, there's a mystery, just a little one to solve. So good luck. But yeah, that's it. So
Oh,
thanks.
awesome. Did you learn anything new about millinery when you were doing the research for the book?
I was looking at old like Regency style fashion plates of hats and things, and I had no idea that there's so many different types of hats, like caps and turbans and like bonnets, and oh my god, and all the fabrics they were made from. Amazing. Yeah, I tried to like paraphrase a few of the descriptions because they're really cool. But yeah, I definitely don't do them justice, honestly. But it was always fun to do the research and just find out more about it. So yeah,
That's one of those things I've always wanted to learn about, because that idea that you can take different materials and shape them into something that conforms to your head, and then turn it into a work of art from there is like
exactly
really, really cool to delve into. Awesome. So what's next for you?
Let's see. I just turned in a new novella for The Lion's Den. So wish me luck. And then I'm writing book 2 right now of a medieval mystery series, which is going to be a whopping 7 books for Dragonblade. So wish me luck. Yeah.
Medieval too.
Yeah, it's this nifty little series about a baker's daughter around the time of the anarchy. So you've got King Stephen, his wife Queen Matilda versus Empress Matilda, in the race for the English throne. So it's good fun. Should be great. So
awesome. Yeah. It's interesting to see authors turning like normal Scottish authors or medieval authors turning to Regency, and Regency authors turning back. It's fun to watch you guys switch places. So cool, something to look forward to.
Thank you.
Awesome. Well, the next book that came out this week is Emily's book, and it's Duke a Day Keeps the Doctor Away, and it's book 11 in the Dukes in Danger series. That's book a lot.
11.
11 is a lot.
It is a lot, but guess what? We're not going to stop at 11. We're going to go to the full 12. So book 12 is already on pre-order. It comes out at the end of May. And I mean, if you haven't read the series, that's totally fine, because each book stands alone. Each book has its own meet cute, hero, heroine, drama, excitement, happy ending. You do get a lot more out of it if you read the series through, because you see people pop up, and each Duke has its own kind of, I wouldn't say a full mystery, because I'm not a mystery queen. I'm not going to try and claim that. I know my lane. I'm going to stick very much in it. But there's usually a misunderstanding or a subplot, or a sister comes in and goes, "Oh, actually, did you know you've been acting under a misunderstanding this whole time?" However, having said that, a lot of the Dukes in this series, which is a series all about Dukes who get very bored and go in search of adventure and are entirely unequipped to deal with that adventure and end up typically having to team up or be saved by their heroines. There has been some spying, some casual spying. It's no big deal. Regency England, it does happen. Moses, who is my hero, the Duke of Chetnar in this book, A Duke a Day Keeps the Doctor Away, you open the story with him desperately trying to get through Kent after he's been robbed, after coming back from France, having discovered a traitor in their midst.
Ooh.
Unfortunately, he is then whacked on the noggin, which is the head. I said that to an American friend recently. She just, "What on earth is a noggin?" I was like, right, okay, your head.
Do you know what noggins are?
Not all of you do. I'm sorry. I, as you can tell by the delightful British accent, very much a Brit, and I don't know what Americans know. And there's a lot more of you than there are of us, and you spread out real wide and real. When Moses wakes up, he knows that he found the traitor, but he can't remember who it is, which is incredibly inconvenient, because he's just been found and expertly cared for by a woman who keeps telling him that she's a doctor. And no matter how much he tries to explain that he needs to talk to her husband, who he presumes is the real doctor, she keeps insisting that she is a doctor. And so you kind of have these irritation to lovers. It's not enemies, they're not enemies, but she is incredibly put out by this seemingly wealthy man who won't tell her anything about himself. He very much keeps his title to himself because he doesn't know if he can trust her. Very much just turning up and expecting to be waited on hand and foot.
Oh, yeah.
And then you've got a man who thinks that women, or has never encountered women who are intelligent in that way before, or so he thinks. I think that's very swiftly proven that actually he's just been walking around with his eyes closed. So you get these two people that are very much forced proximity, as well as this mystery, as well as kind of secrets between the two of them, as well as a few other things thrown in for good measure. And they have a lot of fun. And I'm gonna read this bit off my blurb because I think it's a great sentence, but I can't memorize it. So I'm going to read it. Apologies. My eyes just drift off. With traitors in France on one hand, mistrust of a woman doctor on the other, and fierce attraction growing between unlikely friends, will a duke each day manage to keep away from this delightful doctor?
That is a very good. That is the whole conflict like laid out right there.
In one. So thank you, Dragonblade, for helping me write that, because I did not do that on my own. I'm not going to pretend I did. The wonderful editors and marketing team here at Dragonblade have huge knowledge and craft, so they helped me get that. But yeah, it's a romp. It's silly. It's fun. It's witty sometimes. I don't know about you women, but I find writing funny very difficult. I know Kate is the absolute mistress of it, but I find, you know, he's funny here, and then I'll come back to it because I'm like, I don't feel funny today. But it is really fun, and I don't think this is a spoiler because book 12 is on pre-order. The final resolution of unpicking the traitor in their midst comes in book 12. So again, you can pick up book 12 having never read anything, because with it, after a chapter, I've brought you completely up to speed. But I think you would enjoy it if you've travelled through and met all of the dukes who now feel worried about the traitor. Which one is it? And you want to read all 11 books beforehand to see if you can tell who the traitor is, because you meet him quite a few times. So
awesome. Now we have something to look for. So we have one more book in this series, and then what's next for you?
So we've got we've got All Good Dukes Come to an End, and that is book 12 of my punny series, Dukes in Danger, which, as I said, comes out at the end-ish of May. After that, I have written a family series of 4 brothers set in Regency England, the Chances. And the oldest brother, who is a duke, he's very buttoned up, very restrained, very shy, very proper, always wants to make sure that the family is being respected and is in their rightful place in society. There's 2 problems to that. Number 1, the family has no money. And number 2, his 3 brothers are absolute reprobates. Oh. So the first 4 books in the series follow those 4 brothers in the Regency era, and then the next set of books follow their sons and daughters in the very early
next generation
Victorian era. And so you get to see, you know, what some of my characters look when they're a bit older, and I want to say mellow, they don't mellow at all. If anything, they got more rebellious and raw, roguish. But you also get the fun of siblings and sibling rivalries and cousin friendships and cousin rivalries. The challenge of living up to a father who has a very particular reputation. There are half siblings with, you know, people being naughty. So there's a lot of family drama, but it's all very joyful. It's all very, you know, everyone gets the happy ever after. No one's left kind of at the end of the family.
Oh, wonderful.
Sad. So that kicks off in the summer.
Wonderful. And so much family.
So much.
Awesome. The last book that came out this week is my favorite, Katie. I love the title for that one. It's Shannon's book, and it's book 2 in the Misfortunes Favorites. Can you tell us about that one?
So basically, the series is about 3 friends. They're at a Scottish boarding school, and about age 13, they play a prank on a local witch or somebody who's rumored to be a witch, and they are cursed to lose everything that they care about when they turn 30. And so Henry, who's the Duke of Carlisle in My Fair Katie, makes that pretty easy for that curse to come true, because he is a gambler and he basically cannot stop gambling. He's never met a game of cards or dice that he doesn't like. So when the book opens, he has already lost his family estate. It's not entailed, but he's already lost it to somebody. And then as we're watching, he proceeds to lose the rest of his property. And he then has nowhere to live. And so as happens, he has to go to the lair of his enemy, which is his family estate. His mother has a cottage there, which she owns, and he has to go live with her. And while he is there, the man who took everything from him, his daughter is living on the estate. She's kind of been thrust out of England or out of London, and she's hiding out there, and they have to work together on some things and are thrown together, and romance ensues.
We get another little bit of forced proximity kind of thing.
Yes, absolutely.
Awesome. So what is the heroine like?
She is an artist. She loves painting. She was actually planning to get out of London and go to France to pursue painting. She's caught, and that's why she's sent to the country by her father, who hates the hero and has basically intentionally taken all of his property. She was born with a disfiguring birthmark, and so she's kind of always been hidden away, and this was her chance at freedom. So now she's hiding out there. She does not like the hero because he has neglected the estate and his tenants, and she's pretty upset when she sees the state of it. So there's also a lot of enemies to lovers because she does not like him at all. And he is a very amiable, genial kind of guy. And he's like, "Why, you don't like me? Everybody likes me. I don't get it,
It sounds like he's got quite an arc too to realize the things that he
Yes, he's gonna have to deal with some of his issues for sure.
Awesome. And there's one more book in this series?
Yes, and that comes out in July, and it's called All About Genevieve. And that will wrap up this series, and we'll find out, is the curse really true? Is there any way to reverse it? And wrap up that series.
Oh, fun. And what's next for you?
I'm actually working on a Lion's Den book right now for Dragonblade that'll be out in February.
Oh, great!
Yeah,
Lots of Lion's Den.
Yeah, it's early stages, so I don't have a whole lot to say about it, but I'm working on that.
Cool. Awesome. So I know we've talked about it before, but it's my favorite thing to talk about because I always learn new books that I want to read. So I was thinking maybe instead of talking about writing, we could spend the rest of our time talking about the books that you fell in love with, either when you were a kid, either the books that you read as a child or read to your children if you have children, or the books that led you into romance. The ones that when you think back about your favorite books, what are the ones that catch you? And then I will take my pen and I will make lists of things that I want to add to my TBR pile. So Emily, do you want to go first?
I will go first. I absolutely adore the medieval era. I did my master's in medieval studies. That's my happy place academically. Particularly Queen Matilda, who is, as far as I'm concerned, the first civil war of England, which everyone forgets. And she was
I don't even know who Queen Matilda is.
Empress Matilda was the most incredible woman that's ever sat on a throne in England, despite the fact that she's never actually throned. She cast coins, she did charters, she was queen in Germany 15 years before she came back. Honestly, we could do a whole talk on this. We're not going to do it now, but we should because she's amazing. Anyway, just after her, you have Henry II and Eleanor of Aquitaine, which is very romantic, very medieval. And the book that totally clued me into historical romance is called The Greatest Knight, and it's by Elizabeth Chadwick. And it is the story of William Marshall, who was a real person who rose from kind of the ranks. His family kind of fallen from grace. So he had to kind of get over his family's bad reputation. So where are we? We're like 1170s, 1180s, 1190s. So like proper troubadour jousting. And his fate becomes completely entangled with the new royal family who are trying to establish themselves. And it's not gory, but there is like jousting and wooing and courting and travel across Europe and mystery and political scheming. It's a really, really great book. And it was the first book that I read where I was like, oh, we can go back in the past and just take historical figures and just play with them, actually. Like we don't have to worry about that at all. We can just do it. And I do think that's one of the books that is why I'm a romance writer. And specifically, I started off in medieval romance. I think that book is why.
That's such an interesting idea of taking like actual figures and then and where the fictionalized part of it is. I mean, I'm not going to remember the author's name, which is terrible, but it's the fuzzy brain. But the author of the Power Strife, who like took real figures and had conversations with them. And I always wonder how much research you have to do, how immersed you have to be in the time period, and also the bit that we know about the people to be able to turn them into characters that are plausible.
What I like about the medieval era is that you've got the known history, which we have records for, and then we've got the gaps of history where we're like, we don't know where King Henry II was for these 3 months. Yeah. Your guess is as good as mine. He turned up in ruin in April, so probably near there, maybe. We don't know. But in between that, you've actually also got a huge amount of leeway, and you don't get that with the later periods. By the Regency era onwards, you don't have that kind of... William Marshall commissioned a poem, an epic poem, all about his life and his deeds. And the historians look at that and go, brilliant, a historical record of what William Marshall did. And the English majors go, it's a poem. It's full of hyperbole. It's full of metaphor. He didn't actually slay 10,000 men. Like, come on, like what? And so there's this really, like, for me, as a historian and as a writer, like really enjoyable middle ground of like, well, we know they were exaggerating, but every exaggeration is coming from a point of truth. So how do we pick apart what I think a medieval mind would have wanted to exaggerate, and what do I think is probably actually the truth underneath that they're either trying to hide or trying to glorify?
Yeah, that makes sense, and it all has somewhat of a legendary feeling to it anyway. So yeah, it's right for storytelling. That makes sense. So, Erin, I saw you nodding and smiling when we were talking about Queen Matilda. What?
Yes.
What are your favorites?
Well, I was loving this chat just because for my upcoming series, every book is set during another like battle that occurred at that time, and so that's like the time frame in the setting, and then the characters all run amok and there's murder. But big thanks to Emily, because you just gave me a mystery idea, so I was jotting that down. When
it happens like that,
it's gonna be good. I can already tell. But I was just thinking how when I was about 9. In school in the States, we would get these little like mail order book catalog things that you could like check books that you were interested in. And the first book that really turned me on to fantasy and medieval and everything was this kid's book called Dealing with Dragons by Patricia C. Reed, who's like this lovely children's author. And this book, it's a short, sweet little kid story, but it's about this princess who doesn't fit in. All her sisters are, blonde and gorgeous, blue eyes and blonde hair, and your stereotypical empty-headed, brainless princess who, like to play with a ball. And meanwhile, she's learning magic until she's found out. She's learning cooking until she's stopped. She's fencing. She quotes and is learning Latin. And it's like at age 9, I wanted to be Princess Lauren, who I can't pronounce her name.
All want to be,
Exactly. And so like that apparently had a huge impact on my life, because in high school I joined the fencing team. When I came over to the UK, I studied Latin when I was doing my MA in medieval studies. So I mean, it's all of these things. And I cook very badly and my Latin is terrible, but like still, I got to study medieval magic, which is amazing. And it was like studying at Hogwarts. So I mean, yeah, huge impact, but I love it. And so if I ever need a little like look back at, a book that inspired me, it's Dealing with Dragons. So
wonderful. Like that makes perfect sense that she would be the character that you would want to.
I love it.
She's the one we all want to be.
Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you. Shanna, what about you?
I would say there's 2 authors that really got me started loving romance and wanting to write romance, and one is Julie Garwood. And my favorite book of hers is The Secret, and I actually got to meet her in 2007. So that was amazing. She was at a conference in Kansas City, and so that was amazing. And the other is Marcia Canham, and I don't know if as many people have read her. She's not writing anymore, but she used to write a lot. She wrote a lot of medieval. She wrote some Regency. She wrote Scottish, and I've read all of her books. Oh, she wrote Pirates. I've read all of her books. I just absolutely loved both of those 2, and they were really what made me want to write romance as well.
Oh, awesome. I hadn't heard about the second author, so that's somebody to look for. Cool. Kate, what about you?
So I distinctly remember my favorite book, which was my first, I think, big book, When I was younger, I got it for Christmas. It was The Little Princess. And what's amazing about that book is like the evil characters are so evil. The good characters are so good. The whole attic transformation scene is like so amazing. So I read the book really fast. I thought it was great. And then I just started over and I just kept, I'd get to the last page and I would just go back to the first page. And finally my mom was like, didn't you ever like finish that book? I'm like, yeah, I've read it like 6 times. And she's like, you could have another book. I'm like, why? I mean, this book is like it. Yeah. So I read that over and over. I don't know how many times. And then as I got older, I had an Irish grandmother who was very fond of Barbara Cartland. And she used to pass on her Barbara Cartland novels. She used to buy them at Woolworths and read through them and then give them to me. But then, I just kind of fell into writing historical romance really because I started out writing kids' books, but I always been very attracted to the time period and have read pretty thoroughly in the time period. So yeah, that's how that happened.
Awesome. So I've never heard of anybody taking their first book and rereading it 6 times. That's a fascinating idea to go through the story over and over again. Do the rest of you reread things? I know there are times when I need comfort reads that I go back and do it so that my mind knows what's coming and I don't have to work so hard at it. Are there books that you all reread?
Yeah, I've reread by Marcia Cannon books and Julie Garwood books. When I was young, I used to reread books too all the time. I really like the Star Wars books for some reason.
Oh, wow.
I read those over and over and over again.
I've read David Copperfield, I don't know how many times. That's just one of my go-tos.
One of my complete rereads is The Daughter of Time by Josephine Tey, which is, it was set contemporary when it was written, which was mid-century, last century, but essentially a British police inspector in London is laid out with a broken leg in hospital and he's bored out of his skull. And so his friend challenges him when she comes to visit him to solve the murder of the princes in the tower. And so he goes about like rereading original sources and talking to his different friends. And it's a really, really short book. It's really sparse prose. It's not flowery. It's not set in the past. It's set contemporaneously in like 50s or the 60s when she wrote it. But it is, again, one of those books that set me on that medieval path and set me into like, actually, just because historians say it's one thing, new evidence is happening all the time and we can be creative and think, differently about, different people in the past. So I love that. The Daughter of Time by Josephine Tey.
Yeah, I'm going to look for that one. Erin, what about you? Do you reread?
Yeah, I used to read Pride and Prejudice like once a year, every year. And then I run a book club in London. And one of the books we read totally changed that for me. So Daniel O'Malley's The Rook. It is a modern day, urban fantasy series. And book 1 is about this young woman who she discovers that she has powers. And she works for this ultra secret society in London. And it's great. And the writing is very cheeky. It's very funny. You'll find yourself like laughing and snickering on the tube or on the train. And it's just great. And whenever I need a confidence boost, I reread that series because it is so good. And because she is overcoming, snark and rudeness and men putting her down. And yeah, people think that she's this meek, quiet little mousy character. And actually she comes into her own and she's really not. And it's just great. So that's my comfort read. Bit of sci-fi, but there you go.
Well, that sounds lovely. And I love the idea of connecting with characters that are not exactly what you expect them to be, that are stronger inside than they maybe appear outwardly. I think that kind of, we can all use a little bit of that in our day. So awesome. Well, I have expanded my list, which makes me happy. And we are reaching the end of our time, and I really appreciate you ladies taking the time to talk to us. If you are looking for things to add to your TBR pile, we have got just many wonderful releases, and I'll make sure I'll put the links in the comments so you can grab them if you haven't gotten them already. I'm going to say the same thing I do every week because it's true every week. The Dragonblade books are their best deal on pre-order and release, so you want to grab them then. If you don't grab them then, you can always read in Kindle Unlimited, which is how I like to read. So ladies, thanks again for taking the time to talk to us. I really do appreciate it. It was lovely.
Oh, it's a
Thank you.
pleasure.
Thank you.